Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So construction companies and general contractors arguably have a bit of a rough-and-tumble, male-dominated, my way or the highway reputation. Here to give us a different take on this industry is the CEO of West Michigan's Freedom Construction, Ms. Carrie Wilson. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So maybe my introduction's a little heavy-handed, but as someone who's in the industry, talk a little bit about, what business as usual has been historically.
Sure. I think you hit the nail on the head, pun intended, that construction is an industry that has traditionally required a great deal of grit.
Right.
I think when we say construction, we all think of the most extreme versions of these historical photos, an all-male crew sitting on a beam high above the city in a skyscraper with zero safety gear or harness on, for example, or, someone demos an arena in a city and you see smoke plumes for miles and miles. That's what we think about when we think about construction. But what is not built into the stereotype is construction is actually hundreds of industries that have popped up to support the very action of construction.
Okay.
Right? So if you have a knack for finance or video and content creation or marketing, or in fact, I know a woman for a very well-established construction company who her everyday job is to be embedded in these memberships and volunteer opportunities for local nonprofits that are serving those with the greatest needs in our city, right? So if you have a passion for serving the unserved even, there's a place for you in construction.
Right on. All right. So now you're a CEO of a construction company. Congratulations. It's I am dying to know your story. Talk a little bit about how you got involved in this industry.
Sure. I think I got involved in construction before I knew that I was.
You got duped.
Yes. So my dad owned a tree service company, and he did a lot of construction on the side. So as a very young teen, he treated me like any son he ever had. And I was building barns and houses and structures, really. But I think what that really taught me was, construction is very validating. You can see the physical representation of what you just did, right?
Yeah.
In a way that in a lot of jobs, you just can't quantify it like that. But B, I think he treated me like a person and not a girl.
Right. Okay.
And I carry that with me everywhere I go, right? I have just as much right to be here as any male in any area, construction or not. And I think that's where it was first formed. Absolutely.
So now, interesting question. As I was kind of coming up with this is it easier for you to open doors as a female in the industry, or is it harder to open doors?
I think like all things, there's a lot of balance. There are a lot of pros and there are a lot of cons. Construction is really interesting because there are federal set-asides, for example, for women-owned companies, right? The government, since the 90s, has had this 5% of all government spending should go to women-owned companies. Okay. To my knowledge, they've never actually hit that number. We could do a whole show on what that means, right? So, but my larger point is there are governmental entities and larger established, maybe in the medical field or industrial, a lot of these larger established companies have supplier diversity goals. Yep. So I say that to say, as a woman-owned, you definitely have a built-in realm where they care that you're a woman-owned company. Right. But then to work for these institutions as a company, you need to build up your capabilities, and that typically happens in the private sector. Okay. So we could do a whole social experiment on what it means to be a woman in business in West and Mid-Michigan. Yep. I will say that a couple things. I'll just tell stories, right?
Absolutely.
I was out to coffee with the superintendent of a large school system, and we're talking, and I say, okay, how do we get into your bid process? And he says, oh, well, we always do business with such and such company. We've done that for 40 years. To my knowledge, my predecessor established this relationship. When you step back and look at that, that's problematic in that schools are publicly funded institutions, right? So this publicly funded institution is choosing who they're doing business with outside of
the bid process.
A bid process, right?
What's the point of a bid
That's
process?
That's problematic in itself, right?
Okay.
But then add to this, historically, especially in this region, it's been males in business, not just construction, but in business, right?
Yep.
So if we have these legacy relationships where people are doing business with the people they know, like, and trust, well, it's been men, right?
Right.
It's been white men. And I'm not on a tirade against white males.
Yep.
That's not my point.
Yep.
But we're talking about equal access to opportunity. So if these pre-existing relationships are always in place, where is there a spot for female-owned companies, right?
So, that my next question that I wanted to ask you, and I think you might have already answered it a little bit, is, you have a choice. Most people who are kind of in an industry become a cog in a large machine, right? So, so the punchline, I guess, is what made you decide to start your own construction company as a family-owned, women-run, or female-owned, family-run company, as opposed to being some sort of an executive in an established large construction company that already exists?
Well, my need to start my own company was driven by my own horrible experience in toxic work cultures.
Got it.
Sadly, what happens in a lot of realms are the people who end up at the top of an organization are high ego people. They're usually charismatic, driven, but they're not always people. And when leaders don't keep high standards for how we treat each other and build and protect a culture, what happens are the minorities in that typically become ostracized, bullied, ignored. When you're in a toxic culture, and I was in a few different male-dominated industries, the impact of that is devastating to every part of your life. There was a Gallup study that said 70% of people say that a bad boss is more impactful than a therapist or a doctor. They rate that as equally important to their mental health as having a good partner in life. I was a part of that statistic. I have worked for people who don't have people's best interest of heart. And I say all that to say, you go home and you have these people that you love and that you would die for. But when you're in a toxic work environment, you go home and take from the very people you would die for.
Right, okay.
What I knew is that I was going to start my own business. And I refused to still be an armchair quarterback, right?
Yep.
I've never worked for anyone where I didn't look and say, that's not how I would do that. And I think that made me realize that about myself, is I'm somebody who has to be able to take control and make things right. And I don't always agree with how somebody else is going to make it right.
Right. So you get to have that control. That's fantastic. So Freedom Construction is formed. What types of services do you offer?
We do construction management, general contracting, owner's representative, and we'll do some self-perform for general trades. Got
it. Okay. And so what kinds of structures are in your, do you build office buildings, homes? Like what kinds of things, just to the layperson, what does Freedom's Construction build?
Sure. We'll do all sorts of commercial construction. And right now our projects range from Kent County. We're rebuilding some of their fishing boardwalks. We have a job for the city of Grand Rapids. We're replacing a chlorine line for their water filtration plant.
Huh.
We're working on a mixed-use development in Kalamazoo. We're doing a renovation project for Coca-Cola bottling in Grand Rapids, and a handful of other projects.
Right on. Okay. And also commercial. You're not a home builder.
All commercial.
You do commercial, right. Yep. Okay. Fantastic. So obviously you're not doing all of this alone. Talk to me about your leadership team and how did you pick them and kind of what roles do you all play in your company?
Sure. Yeah, I would say, so my role really is leading and driving the company. I'm doing business development, strategy, bookkeeping, really the bones and structure of running the business. My business partner is my husband, which is really fun fact I usually say for last.
Okay, got it.
I don't have to tell you the number of times when you bring up that I started a company with my husband, the next question is, well, why are you the CEO?
Okay. I wasn't going to ask that. It's clear to me. I've met you in social circles, and I can tell why you're the CEO, but although I've never met him. So.
I appreciate that. I think we live in a bizarre society, right? A husband and wife would start a company, and no one would look at the male and say, well, why isn't your wife running the company? It's something we work through every day.
Right.
Anyway, my husband is in the company. He's the licensed builder. He runs the job sites.
Okay.
He is a true craftsman, a builder through and through. And then we have Steve Huizinga joined us about a year ago. He was the third generation owner of Allied Mechanical Services. He brings really that water filtration background to our team, the HVAC, mechanicals, boiler license, and he's doing some project management. We just hired a project manager who has all federal and municipal and governmental experience really to run that arm of our business.
Got it. Okay. So, being a, woman-owned, family-operated company, it sounds like you've got a great arsenal of people playing the right roles. What's the value proposition for Freedom Construction? Why should people consider bringing their project your way?
Our difference really is that we prioritize people and relationships. And how that plays out on a project is a lot of construction companies treat the owner as an outsider. There's somebody we report the high-level details to at the end of a project, and we let them know how it went. What prioritizing relationships and people means to us is that we are treating owners as though we're building something with them and not for them.
Okay.
So 100,000 things go wrong every single day on a construction site that you just can't control. What we do differently as a company is how we handle those details. We're talking to the owner. We're being very, very honest about what's in the way and the multiple ways that we could solve this and asking them what they think, right? Bringing them along the process as a valued partner and stakeholder as opposed to somebody we're just reporting the results to, right?
Right, yeah.
So we build trust. We do it right, and our owners are confident that we're on the same side of the table as them.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. And now I mentioned that we've bumped into each other at different events. You seem to be very, very busy. I understand you're enrolled in the Leadership Grand Rapids class of 2024. You've been awarded the Athena Grand Rapids Young Professional Award. You've been speaking at the Cranes Power Breakfast about family-owned businesses. You seem to be both a student and a teacher and really building your brand in that way. Why is that important to you?
I think the day that you stop learning is the day that you become very ineffective as a leader. So I think there's that. Also, we as a company, it is so important that we are embedded in the problems of our communities. And we're going to be a part of the solution of whatever it is our communities need, right? We're a for-profit business. We're out there building structures.
Yep.
But the extreme power as a business owner that you have to impact people's lives should be taken so seriously, right? Owning a business isn't about power, it's about accountability. It's about knowing what your community needs and making sure you're in the places you need to be to add value. So that, I guess that's what I tie together, why it's important to me as a minority-owned company. Every time I overcome an obstacle, I now have this knowledge to go through life where I'll never make that mistake again, or I know exactly how I'm going to handle that. I think it is my responsibility to pass that on to other people trying to get into the industry or to start creating generational wealth in a way that they've never had that kind of opportunity. I think it's our duty to be a part of that.
Makes sense. And I'm going to pause for a moment just to thank one of our sponsors. When it comes to managing your finances and planning for your future, I suggest you contact my friends at Wagoner Financial. Whether you're just getting started, getting ready to retire, or anywhere in between, Wagoner Financial can help you make smart financial decisions. Don't navigate complex problems on your own. Wagoner has the expertise to help you feel confident that you're making the right financial choices. Contact an advisor by calling 517-853-3367 or visit their website at wagoner-financial.com. So, Freedom Construction. Love the name. How did it come up?
There's a lot that goes into that name.
Sure.
I'll start with cultural. I think when leaders put in strong standards for how we treat each other and they are so diligent about building a purpose-driven, values-led culture, people come to work so wholly unafraid of being exactly who they are, right? If they have things going on at home in their lives, their kids, their family, there's other parts of lives impacting who we are at every minute. And I think when you build a space where people can come in and tell you what's really in the way, and you can be a part of the solution of getting that out of the way so they can achieve their purpose, both professional and personal, that gives you this innate sense of freedom that you're never going to feel in other kinds of environments.
Right on.
And then I believe I try so hard to stay out of political things. I believe strongly that we have the greatest country in the world, that we're built on a free market, right? I think it's so cool that you can go through half of your career and look up one day and say, I'm tired of how other people are doing this. I'm going to run my own company. And then you can go find the resources. I didn't come from generational wealth. I didn't come from a background where things were handed down as an expectation of you're always going to go run this business, right? But the fact that I can find the resources to make that happen, and here we are today, 3 years in, doing work for legitimate brands and companies, that's true freedom, right? And I think freedom comes with responsibility. Freedom comes with these things that we have to do every day to make sure that we're still free. And that's what we stand for as a company.
Fantastic. And how long have you been around?
Almost 3 years.
Got it. Well, fantastic. How can people learn more about Freedom Construction?
Sure. You can find us online, www.freedomconstructionandconsulting.com. You can give us a call, 616-256-0669. You can find us online. And I'll just say, I extend an open invitation to business leaders in any community. I will have coffee with anyone. I am so curious about the inner workings of our economy and curious about people, and I just want to build that network.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on all the success and all the success to come. We've been speaking with the CEO of West Michigan's Freedom Construction, Carrie Wilson. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.